Welcome to all the distinguished guests at the Institute, both those here in our beautiful headquarters at 31 Bligh Street and those joining us online for this special event and address and a conversation with India's Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar. I'm Michael Fullilove, the Executive Director of the Lowy Institute. Let me begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great personal pleasure to host my friend Dr. Jaishankar at the Institute this evening. He and I were introduced more than a decade ago by his son Dhruva, who was a colleague of mine at the Brookings Institution in Washington, DC in the late noughties. And Dhruva has been a non-resident fellow here at the Institute for some years. He's doing a fabulous job in Washington, of course, running ORF America. This year, Jai, I couldn't be at the Raisina dialogue, but Samir Saran and Dhruva were kind enough to invite me to participate in Raisina DC at a panel with Michelle Flournoy and Senator Bill Haggerty and Mira Raphoopa from the National Security Council that was beamed into Raisina, and I was grateful for that courtesy. Ladies and gentlemen, I've known and admired Jai for more than a decade, and in that period I've called on him in Beijing and Washington, where he was representing the Republic of India. I've called on him in Delhi when he was heading up India's Foreign Service as Foreign Secretary. And now, of course, we're delighted to host him as the Minister. He spoke actually virtually at the Institute in 2020 during the pandemic. And last year, he was kind enough to invite me to give the Atal Bihari Vajpayee lecture, which was a great honour. Dr. Jaishankar and I are both great cricket fans, and today he's had a big day. He went up in a chopper, he inspected a lot of ADF assets, and he was at the SCG where he was personally escorted by Steve Waugh. So let me say, Jai, I am fully aware that I'm playing second fiddle today. But I have always thought that the game of cricket is a lot like the great game of foreign affairs. Things are opaque in cricket, as in diplomacy. Sometimes a draw is actually a win. The weather conditions and the state of the pitch are critical. The ball swings in the air and it jumps off the pitch. Sometimes it flies at your head. And in foreign policy too, the decision-making environment is fast and fluid. And that's certainly the case today. It seems to me the relationship between New Delhi and Canberra, in a way, has the character of a long Steve Waugh innings, if you'll allow me, Minister. We started off slowly, we dug in, we got our eye in, but now that we've settled in, we're taking our shots and the runs are flowing. I might say I wish they had been flowing a little more in Australia's direction during the recent T20 series. Australia has many things that bind us together. We have deep historical and personal connections. There is a brilliant and talented Indian diaspora in this country. But increasingly, we also have a shared view of the world. Through organisations such as the Quad, Australia and India are demonstrating the shared conviction that all countries should have the right to make their own way in the world free of coercion. No country should be forced to live in another's shadow. So our worldviews are coming closer. Our bilateral cooperation is also growing. In 2020, we set up the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. In April this year, we signed the India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. We've increased the pace of military exercises. There are also some welcome positive signs on the economic front, with an uptick in two-way trade last year. Many of us still feel that the private sector has been a bit slow to catch up with these developments, but I'm sure that with visits like this by the Minister and the work of people such as Ashok Jacob, those things will also speed up. Working together, I really believe that countries such as Australia and India have the wherewithal to help shape Asia's future. But first, we need to believe in ourselves and in each other. Ladies and gentlemen, the former US Ambassador to India, Richard Verma, described Dr. Jaishankar as one of the world's best diplomats, and I agree. Dr. Jaishankar was born into a distinguished family of high achievers. He is a graduate of St. Stephen's College at the University of Delhi, and he earned his doctorate from Jawaharlal Nehru University, specialising in nuclear diplomacy, which is probably useful at the moment. He joined the Foreign Service in 1977. He served in capitals such as Moscow and Tokyo. He was ambassador or high commissioner in Prague, Singapore, Beijing, and Washington. He also held a number of important posts in India, culminating in his appointment as Foreign Secretary. After retiring from the Foreign Service in 2018, Dr. Jaishankar joined Tata Sons. But following the 2019 election, Prime Minister Modi appointed him Minister of External Affairs, the first Foreign Secretary, I think, to occupy room 172 in South Block. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming India's Minister for External Affairs, His Excellency, Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar. Jai.
Good evening. Dr. Michael Fulilov, High Commissioner, dear friends. Let me begin by emphasizing what a great pleasure it is to be back here. I've been here physically once before and virtually a few times. And I'm here really at the tail end of a visit to Australia, my second as a foreign minister this year, which I think in itself is a bit of a statement about the relationship. I also come here after not just a great day at the SCG, but after also a splendid day in Canberra. I had very good conversations with Foreign Minister Penny Wong, with DPM and Defence Minister Richard Marles, with the Education Minister Justin Clare. Spent some time with the Australian Defence Forces. But of course, nothing tops Steve Wall. Now, I think perhaps, Michael, we've once discussed the idea of writing a serious book on diplomacy, which is disguised as a serious book on cricket. Because there are actually, they're both very competitive occupations. And there's a lot really that one can learn from any kind of competition if you were to transpose its lessons to a different domain. And in fact, when I was walking around with Steve Waugh, and a lot of his conversations were about him and Sachin Tendulkar, it did strike me that he'd be kind of a useful guy to have around with you when you are strategizing, when you're looking at a difficult world, at trying to read bowlers and pitches, and as he was actually telling me what a difference having support from the crowd does. So there were some interesting and instructive observations there. But let me come back to really the serious business, the India-Australia relationship, which has been the focus of my visit. I am the sixth minister of the Modi government to visit Australia this year, after the Labour government has come to power. And that in itself should tell you something about the seriousness with which we approach this relationship. During this period, of course, we've had the Deputy Prime Minister and Defence Minister visit India, a Premier and a Deputy Premier from Australia as well. We've had a Chief of Naval Staff from India. We've had two significant military exercises in which India has participated. And I cite all those examples to you as a sign of this changing relationship that we speak about. Now, what has led us to discover or rediscover each other more profoundly than before? I think it's a combination of factors. Some of it are the changes in our own societies. Some of it are broadening interests as we have both become more globalized, and in India's case, as we have started to look and act eastwards in the last quarter century. And some part of it, I think, is also an outcome of the larger geopolitical changes in the world, changes which directly impact the region, of which India is on one side and Australia at the other end of the periphery. Now, my sense today is, given the interest we have, given the relevance that we have for each other's strategy and calculations, I clearly have the confidence that this relationship is going to pick up steam very, very rapidly. We passed one milestone with the conclusion earlier this year of a free trade agreement, which is currently under the process of ratification. It also included some changes in business practices, which would make it much easier for our companies to work with each other. This is in the domain of tax. I have seen a great deal of interest in Australia about enhancing the quality and the scale of the education interface between us. And when I look at other businesses which would be natural to Australia, minerals, energy, agriculture, I think there are possibilities here. And the 6 ministers who came, the 5 apart from me, a lot of their attention were actually devoted to exploring these opportunities in the relationship. Having said that, I would like to place this relationship in the larger context of global politics. I think in an immediate sense, we are grappling with what I would call a 3C challenge, which is COVID, conflict, and climate change. I think these are the 3 big issues which have disrupted world politics, disrupted the world economy. And in many ways, I think they frame the larger context in which India and Australia discuss world politics. But preceding those, or certainly preceding the Ukraine conflict and the COVID, are the longer term changes which have been unfolding really over multiple decades. Changes which perhaps had one big inflection point in the global financial crisis of 2008. The fact that we are looking at a much broader distribution of power and influence in the world, that conversations and decisions are no longer as narrow as they used to be. I would say the global rebalancing in many ways is a even bigger picture in which we need to look at the relationship. So for me, whether it's the accumulated bilateral relationship or the geopolitical changes or the big global issues of the day, I think all of this in a way has been distilled into the emergence or the re-emergence of the Quad. I would argue that one of the reasons why the Quad worked in 2017 and subsequently, as opposed to the first attempt at it in 2007, a decade earlier, was the fact that India's relationship, bilateral relationships with the other 3 Quad partners, had developed sufficiently by 2017 for us to actually take this initiative forward in a manner in which perhaps we couldn't do a decade earlier. And in that, if you look at it chronologically, and I've had the privilege of being associated with all these relationships, I would say the India-US had changed in the most dramatic and perhaps in the most profound manner. India-Japan evolved much more steadily, but the relationship which really had to play catch-up was the one between India and Australia. And I think today that catch-up is happening. So it's a bit like falling behind in the first innings and trying to make up in the second. But certainly today, for me, the progress of the bilateral relationship, the ability to work together at a regional and global level, and the interest in shaping really the evolution of the world order. I think these are different facets of the relationship that we're talking about today. So it is for me very much a priority, which is why I'm here a second time. So once again, really thank you, Michael, for putting this together. And I look forward to the conversation.